Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It is May 4th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and this will wrap up our week. No chart lessons on Fridays, so we'll wrap it up today, and this will wrap up our week. But let's, as always, we'll take a quick look at the daily chart here, and you can see that we continue to push lower. Market's got a few minutes before it closes, and it's rallied a little bit here at the close. So maybe we'll close off the lows. It looks like kind of a range day, kind of a sideways day, which is we sold off first. So I really thought we'd kind of just work sideways there, but you can see we've broken lower here, and we actually are closing down below this previous support line. We did that once before and rallied instantly. Will we do that tomorrow? We'll see. Um, but right now, it looks like we're going to close below that. We'd have to have a real super rally here in the next couple of minutes if we were going to really close much higher, and I don't see that happening, but it's always possible, I guess. But there's a look at it, and that's pretty much matches what we see. We had the early sell off, and then we just went sideways in a range, and that bar kind of matches what we are going to see when we flip over to the 2000 tick intraday chart. But let's flip over there and take a look and go through the trades and wrap our week up. And here we are. You can see that early on we had the trend down. We had a break, moved to a new low, and then we just kind of chopped sideways after that. Really, we spent from about just I'd say just prior to 9 o'clock, maybe 8:40, 8:45 on. We just spent that in a range. It looked like for a little bit when we finally had the break here in the new low that maybe we'd go higher, but we didn't do it. The market's just kind of chopped sideways into the 230 hour and hasn't done much since then. So there it is. Let's zoom in here. We'll go through the trades. Quite a few trades today. Try to zoom in where we can see things here. Sometimes I don't get in there close enough. But anyway, we had the possible bigger channel here, but we had this khaki colored channel working down. We had it's obvious a clear trend line right there. Then we had the break, a couple legs to a new low, and then we kind of reversed, but we only mostly went sideways. We didn't really reverse. We just went sideways, and we got a bigger downtrend here in play. But notice the new low there, and you get a first entry, and then you try to go higher and turn down. So if it breaks lower there, it's a second entry short, and that's exactly what we get, a nice second entry short. Um, and then we got a second leg down on to a new low on this khaki channel. And then we rallied a little bit there and just kind of went sideways. We couldn't even get back to this trend line. We just kind of went sideways and worked lower. But we spike up here and it looks like we're going to rally back to the trend line. And then suddenly we get a triple test there. Congestion. I marked this trade. There's not a lot of room to these lows yet. At this point, your range is right here in this little square right here, and it didn't end up being bigger. After the fact, you can tell it's a two-tiered channel, but early on, this looked like support and the bottom of the channel. So even though you got a triple test here, you don't have a lot of room there back to the midline. Um, there's probably enough to scalp out. It's not a perfect signal bar either, but this has been a strong downtrend. And when you try to go higher 3 times, you're probably going to go lower. So maybe you take that trade. I marked it green. It's a little iffy. Um, I can't remember. Did I miss the long here? Anyway, we had the green channel working up in a break, two-legged correction. That's a second entry long, and you're trying to reach a new high. That's another thing too. We don't quite reach the new high. So I think I missed that blue one. If I did, if I talked about it twice, then I apologize, but I don't remember mentioning it. So I think I jumped straight to the triple test. But anyway, then we start chopping along in this second half, lower half of this sideways. You would think we'd make it back to the trend line, but we don't. And we break out here and we try to pull back. And such a bearish bar right there. Um, it's like a breakout pullback that turns back down. Um, and we're in a huge downtrend. And so we're probably going to head, the fact that we couldn't even get back to the trend line leads you to believe we're probably going to go lower. And so maybe you go short there. It's not the greatest setup, but it's such a bearish bar and it's a breakout pullback that maybe it's worth taking. And you see it turns out to be a great trade. The bottom just falls out. So if you were to catch that trade, you catch a runner and you can ride this all the way down and you'll probably be done for the day. But anyway, we ride to the other side, we bottom out, we kind of work sideways, and then we just kind of we make it these little pushes up and sideways, pushes up, and then we worked right back over into the trend line over here. So there was also a little news this morning at 7:30, I think it was, the unemployment claims. So you'd want to be out 7:15 or so, and it didn't really amount to much. So you could start trading pretty quickly on that one. But we do run all the way down, and then notice we bounce here. We get a spike up, and then you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry. This one's a little congested. It's clearly a second entry short in a downtrend, and that's really the first break of that channel. I don't know if I would count that or not. But this is still congested. It's not a perfect setup, so I don't know if you take that trade or not. I marked it green just to point it out, but it is a second entry short. And of course, it was an easy scalp, but then it bounces and shoots straight up, and I don't think I'd try to go long there yet. And then we're just stuck in this range. But notice you end up you tried to test this once, twice, three times, then you get a nice bullish bar. So I like that just to try to get a scalp out of it, and that's really all you get, and it just keeps chopping sideways until we get another little failed breakout here. We still haven't got back to the trend line, but we're really struggling to get past that midline right there. But every time we bounce down here, so this will probably trap people, and you'll probably easily get a scalp out of it. And what does it do? It shoots straight up to the trend line. So maybe you take that trade. There's some reasons to be concerned. It's been a little congested across here. I definitely wouldn't take this long right here, right into that support. Or this, I'm sorry, this short right into this support. But when it fails out down here, break above that would probably send it at least back to the midline and maybe the trend line. Of course, it goes straight to the trend line. And again, I didn't mark this because it's right back into the resistance or support. I'm sorry, it's right back into the support there. But that's a very bearish bar right off the key entry point. It pretty much confirms it. But it's a big bar. It's 17 ticks. You got to go short right into the lows there. But it's just such a big bar right into the lows. I just think you have to skip that trade. And of course it bounces. You get a first entry, second entry. Nice bearish bar on a second entry short. I like going short right there. Then you get another second entry short with a nice bearish bar. And then of course we find some support here, and we actually end up getting a break. We actually get another two legs back up to the trend line again. Notice the new low, first entry, and then we rock it up. So that's a second entry short. Again, right off the key entry point. Nice bearish bar way away from the EMA. Take that trade. And I thought we were going to get another setup here, but it ended up closing too much like a doji, and you just didn't really get a chance to enter. And then and you also had to be concerned about this trend line here. This one is real tempting because we confirm that trend line here. Then we get a higher low. Plenty of room back to that trend line, but I think you're better off to wait here. And then you're kind of coming to an apex here. You can see, you have two patterns are coming together right here, and so you got to be careful. You don't know which one's going to win out. In the end, it looks like this one does. And notice you got a new high there. It's higher than that one, so that's a first entry, second entry. It's right off the key entry point. Decent signal bar. I mean, we're mostly working sideways here, even though we're in a downtrend. This is mixed trading here, so you can trade it both ways. So I take that one. I like it, and you don't know that it's going to rocket up like this and get an overshoot up here, but it does. And we get an overshoot and just reverse. But for just a little while, that was a very nice trade. And really what happens is this thing gets overdone here, and you get an overshoot on this one too. Runs up, break. Tried to make a new high, but it doesn't. There's actually a failed second entry long there. I don't know that I take. You have to take that on the engulfing bar, or else then there's a big stem and a lot of sideways. So I'd probably skip that. We drop down here, and then we're chopping along, and you actually get a first entry and then a second entry. It's mostly sideways though, but then you get this lower high right off the key entry point. As long as you got room to get out before you get to here, take that trade, because you don't know if it's going to go lower or bounce there. It ends up going lower, but you don't know early on what it's going to do. So just make sure you got room to get out before there. Otherwise, don't take that trade. Then, of course, you make another new low and you get a first entry. And there's a second entry here, but that signal bar, it's just congested. I don't think you need to enter there. It's too risky. We'll just draw it where it's easier to see there. And so I don't like going short there at all. We do get a break here, and see, there's not long to get a new low either, so you got to be real careful though. It does keep going lower, but you don't know that it's going to do that. And then we're just kind of working sideways again here. It's still a kind of a downward trend, but we're working sideways. And of course we bounce down here at these lows again and go higher. There's a higher low right here, but I don't think you want to. You do have a break here and two legs to a new low. I mean, that's a possibility. There's not much room to that high. There's plenty of room to the EMA there, so maybe you take that trade. I'm not super crazy about it. I would like to see a reversal, and you don't really get that. Of course, you run up now. You get a break, and you actually get two legs back with a second entry. We're below the EMA. It's just really kind of hard to know what's going on here. If you're following the price action, we do have a break and a new low, and you would expect a retest of this high right here. This is actually more like this right here. So you get this break. It's a two-legged correction, and that's a second entry long. So maybe there's some room back to the EMA, so maybe you can safely take that. And of course, if it does go higher, watch for at least a measured move. And you can see that there. We actually went slightly higher than that, but I'd be looking for a measured move there. But maybe you take that second entry. There's a higher low here, but you can't take that setup. By the time you go along here, you're kind of into these highs, and it could be a range setting up. But we just keep working higher, and I just don't see anything all the way up there that I really think is worth the risk. Then we get the break, and it looks like we're going to go ahead and make a move to a new high, but I didn't draw this. You really need to wait and let this play out. Wait and let that play out, and you just get the break and go higher. It looks like you're going to get it. I think this actually, I can't remember if this went lower. I believe that broke higher and then turned down. On that engulfing bar right there, I wouldn't trade that. It's really hard to know. You would expect prices to try to go higher here still, not lower. So I don't like really going short, but I don't see anything I like long there either. And then next thing you know, we're going lower again. We drop on down. We start working sideways. And you can see there's multiple tests there. The only problem with this one, you might say, hey, there's a triple test there. Why didn't you go short? Well, you're not back to the trend line yet. And by the time you get the triple short, Um, I don't know what to think about that bar. And then you come back and you finally test it again, and you really make a lower high there too. And look how bearish that is. I like going short on that one. There's some concern about being too close to the support here. Um, I drew this right across here, but maybe it may be really right there, and that gives you enough room to get out. And that kind of fits again with this, but originally that's how I had it drawn, is like that. And I thought this was a failed breakout, but in the end, that looks more like it. Look how much better that midline fits. And this looks like a nice trade here. So if you saw it like this, you could probably argue that that's red, if not green. That turns out to be a great trade. Runs all the way to the other side, bounces, and then kind of continues to chop lower. There's a failed second entry long right there, but you can't go short right into those lows. And really, you're looking for a failure to come off of the trend line somewhere to give you a continuation pattern. Where at this point, prices really look like now, especially now that obviously they're probably trying to make a new low, but you just don't have much room there. And so you can notice it makes just enough to get a new low and then it reverses. There is a higher low here, but we're in a downtrend, so just wait. Would have turned out to be a great trade, but it could have ticked up and turned back down. You just don't know what's going to happen. So this runs up, you get a close outside, and you get that tick higher. It fails and turns down. Maybe you take that engulfing bar, but even after it closed that bearish that far away from the EMA, you could still take that trade. So, and it turns out to be a nice move down. And of course, you get a first entry, and you get this second entry. But look how sideways we are there, and we do have the break in the new low, so it's tempting. But that doesn't look like a rejection. You want to see the prices take off like this. So you're better off to wait on a higher low or rejection or something. You get a higher low here, but no setup, and then you're into 230, and that's pretty much the end of the day. So this was really all just mixed trading in here. But once you had your break of this main sell-off and then the new low, you would expect we would reverse out of here if we're gonna go higher. We don't do that. We just chop sideways. And so you got to find these shorter term trends in here and try and play those as an alternative. That's really the only thing you can do. And there's just really not a lot of setups in here because by the time the thing's obvious where it's going, you've moved a long way and you're so far away from the EMA, and if there's no second entries or anything, so it makes it difficult trading. But there were plenty of trades early up until maybe just before 11 o'clock, and then it was just slim pickings after that because we're just chopping in every direction, and it just makes tough trading. So you need to be sure you're in sync with the flow of the price action, that you're reading it properly, and it's hard to do in that kind of price action. So anyway, that's how I saw it today. So I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to wrap it up, and we'll try and wrap this week up. But I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.